let's bring in someone who would know a lot more about this and some of the information we're talking about currently. And remember, this interview is brought to you guys by BetUS. It is the beat writer, Detroit Lions beat writer for MLive, joins us every Monday. You guys know who it is, Mr. Kory Woods. Please welcome to the show, Kory.
Yo, what's going on? What's going on?
Kory, a lot of things transpired over the weekend, man. All right, so we got the Lions win. A lot of injuries occur, of course. And then you have the signings. You have Quan Alexander, Jamal Adams. I'll just start with the obvious, the big one, Jamal Adams. We talked about it, and I wasn't really sure what his role would be. It's been kind of clear he's going to play that linebacker role, a role he's been asked to play formally in his career. What do you make of the signing, the significance of players choosing the Lions, and just what do you think his role will be? What kind of impact do you think Jamal Adams will make for the Lions?
Well, first off, I think that it was a solid signing for the Lions, first and foremost, because when you have Malcolm Rodriguez down, you're already down Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. I mean, you have a lot of that. You have what was once one of your deepest, grooms is now extremely thin. So when you bring in a guy like Jamal Adams that has the build of a linebacker and was just sitting at home and waiting for an opportunity, it's a low risk, high reward. I mean, you're not going to be asking this guy to go ahead and play in coverage, but he can play that box line. He can play that box safety that you need, similar to a role that Iafrate Melifonwu was doing. Iffy is really good on the blitz, and we don't even know when Iffy is coming back. So he can step in and create some pressure. Help with the run game right there. So I think it's a good signing. He's on the practice squad right now. I guess we all can pretty much say if he stays healthy and he performs, he's going to be elevated. But he has familiarity. It's not, I won't let us say real familiarity. Quan Alexander has the real familiarity with Aaron Glenn, but Aaron Glenn and Adams do have a strong connection and a bond. He talked about that today when he spoke to the media. So it's a smart move. Guy has a high IQ, 3-time Pro Bowler, multiple-time All-Pro, and it's again you needed the bodies, and this guy is right there. So if he's healthy, it's a good move.
Hey Kory.
I interrupted today's video to tell you about the sponsor of today's video. And as always, it is BetUS. And you guys can check it out right now. The number 1 seed in the NFC. The odds, the lines of the favorites, plus 150. I love it. Eagles are second, plus 250. I have confidence the Lions can finish the job. Despite being banged up, Eagles still play the Commanders and Steelers. I'm going to go ahead and put 100 to win 150 on it and lock it in. Right now, you guys can do it. On BetUS, they're offering 150% on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposit, up to $2,000. Go over to BetUS, check it out. Thursday Night Football this week. Get your bets in. Let's get back to the video.
One thing, and I'm interested to know, just with all the injuries and everyone on the IR, are there any? I was looking at the roster last week, and when they started to let James Houston go and all these different spots started opening up. One thought that I had was maybe they're going to take some guys off the IR. Is there a chance, I know this IR list defensively, it's long. Is there a chance some of these guys actually start to come off the IR? I know there are different guys like the Commish, obviously Anzo when he in a couple weeks, hopefully, Germ with those injuries where they weren't real season endings like some guys like Rodrigo. Are we going to start seeing some of these guys come back, do you think, over the next 2 or 3 weeks before the playoffs?
Me and Ben actually talked about that today on our podcast, Dungeon of Doom podcast. You can find it everywhere on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. Me and Ben talked about that today, about some of these guys potentially coming back. Germ, I'm pretty sure that maybe his clock might start, very soon, very possible. We still kind of mysterious right there, but we haven't heard anything about season ending, so you could possibly see his clock starting soon. When you look at Anzalone, a couple of weeks ago, they were saying that it was a 6 to 8 week injury. So if you look at it like that, that probably puts him back closer towards the playoffs. I think that's why going ahead and getting that number 1 seed and locking that up, that is very paramount, because if it's leaning towards more of the 8-week side, then you're going to get him back closer towards the divisional round. So that's pretty good right there. Derek Barnes, at first we thought that was a season-ending injury, but they haven't really said anything too much about it. And Barnes has been around in the building, in the practice facility, so that's also another name or eye guy to keep an eye on. Not trying to say he's coming back, but he's been in the building, so that's something. So I believe we'll still start to see some of these guys come back very soon. It's just a matter of when.
And in the meantime, Kory, until those guys do come back, looking ahead to this week against the Packers, what do you think it's going to look like defensively with these guys coming in with banged up, but then you have an offense in Green Bay that's starting to find their stride a little bit. And we remember what happened last year when the Packers came into Ford Field. So what's your expectation this week against this Packers offense?
Well, when you look at the linebacker room and you look at that linebacker room, it's kind of like we'll see. I think it's going to be something like, it's going to be by committee. Obviously, Jack Campbell's going to be out there. He's going to be the green dot. He's going to be the main guy out there. But everything else is going to be, I think you're going to see a lot of guys floating in and out. But the one thing that I think fans should realize is that, yes, they are depleted in their linebacker corps, and they are without Aiden Hutchinson, but they still have that dynamic duo of Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. You still got Terry Arnold. You still got Carlton Davis. You still got Aleem, DJ Reader, and Zadarius Smith out there, and then Josh, Pascal. He's going to be working back through some things very soon. So, I mean, it's when it comes to Green Bay, it's going to be very tough. I mean, Josh Jacobs is playing some of his best football. I mean, he's third in the NFL. He's third leading rusher in the league. So you got to account for him. He's hasn't had a 100-yard game against the Lions since 2019. So they've been decent in bottling him up. So that's that. But again, last year, Green Bay came in there on Thanksgiving and they beat them 29-22. So this week, what I'm expecting is I'm expecting a very tough game. I think that Green Bay is going to go ahead and test them guys with the rushing attack. But I think that the Lions can possibly squeak it out. It's very possible. It's going to be very difficult because you're going to be rotating a lot of guys in, and if there's anything that I could say that can give fans a plus is that Aaron Glenn has been doing a masterclass of patching together this defense ever since the early injuries to Hutchinson, Davenport, and Barnes. So if there's anybody you can trust with the way that he's done so far, it's Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, Kory, that's my biggest thing, and we're going to talk about it more later, but the defensive line, the injuries that have kind of occurred, you already have no Aiden Hutchinson, but you lose Josh and you lose Levi. My biggest thing is getting pressure on Jordan Love or getting pressure for any elite quarterback for that matter. I know Bill Belichick talked about it on Pat McAfee. His big thing watching the Detroit Lions, he's concerned about the pass rush. What do you think? Because I'm watching Philadelphia and Baltimore, watching Philly suffocate Lamar Jackson. Like they have all these defensive linemen. What do you think of, number one, the current state of this pass rush and facing Jordan Love, but big picture, like facing some of these really good teams with really good quarterbacks, how they're going to match up given the injuries that they've been trying to overcome. And now they just last week released James Houston.
Well, let's start with the other part first, James Houston. They let James Houston out the building because, first off, James is a great guy, great interview. The Lions really wanted it to work out with him, but they just were not seeing what they wanted to see from him in practice. So you got a guy like Muhammad who's out there stepping up on the defensive line, who I forgot to mention. He's been providing quality snaps for them. And then you got other guys coming in there too, providing quality snaps. It's like, okay, we got to go ahead and free up some room. But when you're talking about getting that pass rush, it is a concern. It is a concern. But again, one thing I just continue to say is that when they haven't been able to generate that pass rush, they've been able to get takeaways. They've been able to get stops. And that's one thing that this defense has been able to hang its hat on. Yeah, they did not, they could have played a little bit better against the Colts. They could have played a little bit better against Caleb Williams. But again, they're figuring this thing out on the fly. So it's pretty much every game is a we'll see. It's pretty much is what it's been, because it's you don't know what to expect, because a lot of these guys are now playing together for the first time ever when they get out there on that field.
Yeah, hey, Kory, other side of the ball offensively, one thing that keeps standing out to me, is the Sam Laporta situation going on. Obviously, he had the two big touchdowns, and in the red zone last week versus the Bears. But I think there is a sense to where it's like he's not getting the yards and he's not doing, like, the numbers aren't there that we saw his rookie year. Do you think now, and is this something to do with injuries, or do you think it's just, hey, the way the scheme is with JMO stepping up, all the different weapons, like with the running backs getting more? Do you think it's just that, or do you think it's like, hey, he's just had a bad year with injuries and he's kind of just fighting through that? What's going on with Sam Laporta this year?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, with the injuries, he hasn't been out there consistently. He has been able to get into a real rhythm, and then on top of that, everybody else has been stepping up as well. I mean, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown doing St. Brown things. Like you just said, Jameson Williams has stepped up in a much bigger role than he did last year. Tim Patrick is out there balling. Jahmyr Gibbs is somebody that you have to factor in the passing game. So, and then on top of it, this is a dynamic Lions offense where they don't have to just beat you one way every week. And that's the great thing. Also, the great thing about their offense is nobody on that offense cares about how they beat you that week, or they're crying about their touches or their catches. They just want to go ahead and get the W. So Ben Johnson has developed a mindset of, we're going to do what is best to get the W that week. So, I mean, with the way that Laporta has, been dealing with some injuries, maybe they're trying to mask that a little bit and go into some of the other guys and let him work himself back into a rhythm. I mean, when he first came back, you saw he was a little rusty. But, I mean, again, last week, caught a couple of touchdowns. But I really wouldn't worry about it, because Laporta remember, this guy is still an elite athlete, still an all-pro, and they have a bunch of other weapons that they can go ahead and hit you with. And, I mean, if I don't think any team is going to forget Sam Laporta is there, and if they do, shame on them. That they're gonna pay.
And something that was kind of controversial that happened towards the end of that game in Chicago, but honestly was kind of a difference maker when you look at the outcome of the game, was JMO kind of freaking out after. And you see Antoine Randall kind of going off on the sideline, and I know it wasn't like he was necessarily needed out there, because you have guys on that offense that can make plays still, but you saw that they didn't put him out there after that penalty. So what did you make of the whole flipping the ball to Tyreek Stevenson, and then the reaction by Antoine Randall saying, hey, you're not going out there for the rest of the game, Kory?
I think, okay, so let's start from the beginning. Jameson Williams should not have flipped the ball in Tyreek Stevenson's face. That was just uncalled for, especially at that time of the game. But the thing that is not really getting talked about a lot is that as JMO was coming onto the sidelines, Stevenson tripped him. So that's what triggered that reaction to him flipping the ball in his face. Doesn't excuse him from doing it at that point of the game, because that was a 15-yard penalty. But he didn't just do it flippantly. He did it because Stevenson, he got away with one, tripping him off to the sidelines. And then on top of it, you can't argue. You can't argue with your position coach. You can't argue with any of your coaches in general. And I mean, benching him for the rest of the game, I think that was a smart decision. That's the way that he's going to learn, because that could have cost them the game. And to Jameson Williams' credit, Dan Campbell said that he was unsolicited, stood up in front of the locker room and apologized. And I mean, I know these instances with Jameson Williams, that you can say, hey, they're getting kind of old, but I'll say this much: all players are not the same. All people are not the same. Some players are more mature or in different situations than others. And I mean, at the end of the day, the kid has a good heart. He's not some jerk out here. He's not some of these athletes you see out here that are young and intentionally being jerks. He's just a good kid that has to figure out his own way and figure out how to not continue stacking up these bad choices. But I thought that, hey, they won the game. It didn't cost them. They nipped it in the bud. Move on.
Yeah, I love it.
it.
You can tell Kory's a dad now. He's just like, you can tell he's just like, hey man, shit's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let him grow, let him learn. We appreciate you, Kory, as always, joining us on Mondays, man. You always crush. Check out Kory's stuff, by the way. Follow him on social media at Kory Woods.
Check it out.
Great follow.
It's full time now, and I got to get rid of that Pistons thing at the bottom. That's not me. He's full time Lions. He's crushing it. Kory,
Yeah.
hey, we appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good one.
There
Appreciate
go.
you, Kory.
Kory Woods, M Live. And as always, brought to you guys by BetUS. But a lot of what Kory was saying there, that's why I love Kory. He'll say his opinion, say what he thinks. And
He's spot on always too.
Yeah.
Kory's like dialed in.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.